YouTube, what's going on? Nick here to talk about Peacemaker Episode 4 entitled The Chode Less Traveled. Yep, The Chode Less Traveled. What a title. Great thinking here, James Gunn. If you don't know what a chode is, I suggest you go over to Urban Dictionary, type it in, and see what it says. So there will be spoilers talking about this episode, which puts us halfway through Season 1 of Peacemaker, not knowing if we're getting a Season 2 yet. Maybe we'll see. But overall, I thought this was a better episode. I think out of the first three that we got last week, Episode 3 was the best. And I want to say this pretty much carried over the story, the developments for each character. We learned more about the plot, which is always nice. Keep the story moving, and we got to see a little bit more from every point of view for the most part. So I think that one of the biggest things that was kind of funny was maybe DC taking shots at Howard the Duck, saying that Duck can't wear a human costume. And, if you know who Howard the Duck is, if you don't, go do a quick Google. But Howard the Duck is on the other side of the spectrum from DC over at Marvel. And I believe it was Guardians of the Galaxy that introduced Howard the Duck, which James Gunn himself directed and wrote. So maybe that was intentional for James Gunn himself. But all in all, I think one of the biggest plot details we got was at the very end, was that Myrn himself is a butterfly. So that begs the question, why is he more or less trying to put an end to the butterflies? Was he established within the project itself and then was thus removed? Maybe he's trying to take some sort of revenge, or this is a vengeance story for his character, or maybe he's just trying to set them up. Maybe it's something to get back at Amanda Waller. Not really too sure yet, but I'm curious because of next episode. It looks like we go into a warehouse full of butterflies, so that'll be pretty interesting. And even again, from episode 3. We see that Myrn says take the shots, kill the butterflies, obviously like the senator and his family. So I guess he doesn't really care about the other butterflies. Again, kind of intriguing. As far as John Cena himself in this show, I think he's still fitting the bill. I think he's still pulling off the role rather well. Hilarious, just over the top. And just being this big goofy guy who has some mental issues. Yeah, Chris Smith has a bit of an issue with his father. We know a little bit more now because of his file that says things about him that Adebayo had said to him, that he confirms with Amelia Harcourt. And he has this moment when he's just listening to music and he falls over and eagerly tries to, God, that eagle, comes over to try and console him, I guess, if you can get any, any comfort from the eagle. But he is realizing how tortured he was. And we get a little bit more, information about his brother, that had maybe some sort of seizure, was, foaming out of the mouth. I wonder if there's more of that story. I'm sure there is, but he's got to somehow come to terms with his past and his father, who he looks up to. I feel like he looks up to him despite what he's been through. And again, we see a flashback scene of when he was a kid and his father making him torture some guy in some off room. And so, yeah, Peacemaker's character is, or as a character, is pretty mind fucked. And who to blame him, right? With a father like that, who is, a white supremacist, is, extremely racist, and just is essentially a supervillain, or not, maybe not a supervillain, but is a villain, right? And speaking of ways to deal with him, Adebayo puts a just a little idea in Vigilante's head, and he gets into jail, gets arrested, right, and makes short work of the other the other guys in there, and he realizes, even though he gets bailed out, he realizes that he might have messed things up even further because, you know, uh, will Peacemaker's father speak to the detective and spill the beans? Will the detective even care? Maybe, because I think the detective also wants to somehow snag Peacemaker, since Peacemaker was let out of jail earlier than expected too. So it's interesting because his father's going to essentially be a rat, a snitch, on his own son. Of course, we know that he doesn't really give a shit about Peacemaker, and that he really only cares about himself, and that he's a piece of shit, garbage human being. Um, and speaking of name calling, the scene where his next door neighbor sees Peacemaker and is calling him out for being like a supervillain and not a hero or a superhero, and then Peacemaker just going off at him. He's like, "Look, dude, I'm just trying to have a conversation," and it was kind of harsh to the old man, but also just somewhat humorous in a sick sort of way, maybe. But I laughed, and it's an interesting point. I think that's one of the um, good talking points, within the vigilante realm, especially within Batman. Of course, you know, a lot of people are big fans of Batman, and he's like their favorite superhero and whatnot, and regardless of whether you like DC or Marvel, but it's for Batman's sake, like, right, he doesn't kill people. He locks them up, and then they somehow get out, and then only to murder more people, and he just won't really break that code, especially with certain characters that as we know. And I like the little Easter egg when Peacemaker goes, "Riddle me this," right? I think it's more so clever writing from James Gunn, but yeah, like I think it's an interesting point where, uh, is it worthwhile to kill villains like that because of how insane they are, and that the justice system just isn't enough. And so this is sort of like where Peacemaker's role might fit into play, and of course, at least in the eyes of Myrn. And but even then, he's not like Batman, to any other extent, as we well know. Um, and I think for the sake of the rest of this episode, I think the passive aggressive conversation between Peacemaker and Vigilante was pretty hilarious. Like, we know that he was mad for just letting him be tortured, and having half of his pinky toe somewhat cut off, but not really fully cut off, just causing him a lot of pain. Adebayo says she's not built for this, even though she gets her first kill this episode. After Harcourt kind of gives her shit from the previous episode for not being able to kill that security guard. There's this street fight between Peacemaker and the judo master, which, yeah, look, Peacemaker was just gonna destroy him. Judo master might got some good shots in there, but yeah, I like the line where he says, "You're a big bubbly man," or "Your body looks all bubbly," just because John Cena is a large human being, and has insane veins in his arms. Whether that's from working out or not, but either way, it's a topic for another day. I would say, for the sake of that moment, though, where Adebayo shoots Judo Master in the chest, it's sort of like where I said, I figured he would have been dead last episode, but he's not, even though he's probably dead, even though Peacemaker says, no, he's doing the karate thing. Like, he's just breathing, and then he'll just somehow be alive again. Like, I don't know. He just needs to stay gone. And again, I don't know if it would just be too humorous at that point to continue to bring him back and over and over and over again for the remaining half of the season. I think the case between Harcourt and Peacemaker, where Myrn just says, Peacemaker trusts Adebayo. He wants to get in bed with Harcourt. I think she's somewhat maybe kind of sort of like warming up to him. At least that's what maybe it seemed with that look she gave him in the bar after he goes to her to learn more about his file and what it says about his past. So, but we'll see. I'm gonna say they're gonna do it at some point this season. Again, I think at some point, Mern's gonna find out, or the team's gonna find out that Amanda Waller is her mother, and that's how she got the job. Curious to see again what happens with Mern's story in this season. Maybe he won't make it. Maybe Adebayo's the one that takes him out. Who knows? And Mr. Economos, he tries, right? He tries, even though he kind of screwed the pooch, and Mern's like looking at him and just says, he knows he messed up, but maybe he'll have some sort of redemption for trying to frame Peacemaker's father. And it's sort of one of those things where maybe if he just would have given it a little bit more thought as to who to frame, he literally could have picked anyone at random. And granted, that was a poor choice in the spur of the moment. If he would have just left Peacemaker's father at home and not be a suspect, things would have been a lot better. Of course, that's not what really makes the drama in the show. So it is what it is. We are where we are. But again, overall, I think this episode was kind of keeping pace with the previous episode. It looks again like the next episode will start. Things will start to heat up a little bit more. Looks like we'll get a little bit more action. I'm sure the same sarcastic, adult-rated humor. And we'll see what other things divulge from the relationships in this show. So what did everyone think about this episode? And what do they think? What do you guys think so far, since we're now at the halfway mark of the Peacemaker season? Do we think, that Peacemaker and Hardcore are going to knock some boots? Do you think people will find out about Adebayo's mother's Amanda Waller? Do we find maybe Economos has some redemption and comes through big time for the team? Does everyone find out Mern's a butterfly? Does he die? Does he live? Does he have a higher purpose? What happens with the White Dragon, Peacemaker's racist piece of shit father? Maybe he dies. Maybe that's what leads into season 2. Mr. T-1000 himself. He's played a great villain in the past, so he can do it again. I guess it just really depends on the ratings and the fans and viewers, and if this gets enough traction for HBO and Warner Brothers to greenlight it for season 2. And of course, if James Gunn is available and is feeling like he wants to continue on this season, because he may not want to, but we'll see. So if I made any errors, left anything out, or maybe if there's anything that you thought was great about this episode or sucked about this episode, please leave them in the comments. Respond to everything, and like engaging with everyone. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this video, and until next time, I'll catch you guys on the next Peacemaker video and a bunch of other shit coming. So see you then. Peace.